They say your gut always knows. I used to roll my eyes at that. Figured it was just something people said after the fact, once everything had already unraveled. But the truth is, I think my gut had been talking to me for a while. I just wasn't ready to listen. It was a Tuesday. I remember because I had flown into Austin for a 3-day conference, and Tuesday was supposed to be the least eventful day on the itinerary. I just finished a working lunch with a potential client at a co-working space near South Congress. We shook hands, did the whole let's circle back next quarter dance, and I walked out into the early September heat. I wasn't in any rush, so I took a long route back to the hotel, partly to clear my head, partly just to enjoy the city I once thought about moving to. That's when I saw her. There's this little bistro on 2nd Street, low profile, romantic without trying to be, just a few sidewalk tables and a menu written in chalk. I'd never been there before, but I knew the type. Couples on dates. Friends splitting a bottle of wine. Nobody in a rush. Mia was at the second table from the window, seated across from a guy I didn't recognize. She wasn't looking at him the way you look at a coworker or a friend. It was softer. And asterisk mate even. The guy, tall, younger than me by a few years maybe, clean-cut with a tan and business-casual confidence, was laughing, leaning in a little too far across the table. And then I noticed their hands, resting together, casually, like it was normal. And just like that, something in me clicked into place. I didn't make a scene, didn't storm in or demand an explanation. I just stood there on the sidewalk, out of their line of sight, pulled out my phone, and snapped a photo. It caught everything. Their hands, the dessert they were sharing, their untouched drinks, and most importantly, both of their phones face down on the table. Not off, not away, just face down like they didn't want the world to interrupt them. I took a breath and walked away. Honestly, I don't know how I didn't fall apart right then. Maybe it was the setting, broad daylight, people walking dogs, the low hum of traffic and buskers in the distance. It felt like I was inside a scene that didn't belong to me. Back at the hotel, I stared at the photo for a long time. I didn't want to believe what I was seeing. Even with all the signs I'd ignored in the past few months. Her late nights, the new gym membership, the texts she answered in the bathroom. I still wasn't ready to admit to myself what this was. I called no one, texted no one. I just sat in that sterile room with its bland art and king-size bed, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. I could confront her, demand answers, but something told me that wouldn't get me the truth. Not the real truth, anyway. Instead, I kept quiet. I got dressed for dinner like nothing happened, drove to my parents' place where they were hosting a casual family barbecue, and braced myself. Mia arrived about 20 minutes after I did, wearing the same outfit she had on at the bistro. A navy sundress with a cropped cream cardigan, sandals, and those oversized sunglasses she only ever wore when she was trying to look effortlessly pretty. Not that she needed the help. She's always had a way of pulling attention without trying. And just like always, she smiled like nothing was out of the ordinary. Then she introduced him. "This is Evan," she said lightly, motioning to the same man from the restaurant. "He's helping me with the housing reform project I mentioned. We've been pulling crazy hours on this grant proposal. Thought I'd drag him along so he could meet everyone." Evan shook hands with my uncle, laughed with my sister, complimented my mom's potato salad like he'd been coming to these things for years. Mia played it off perfectly. There wasn't a flicker of tension in her voice, not a single misstep. Then came the casual pivot. Someone, I think it was my cousin Anna, joked about how hard marriage must be when both people have demanding jobs. It was a harmless comment, just small talk. But Mia jumped on it. "Yeah," she said, letting out a little laugh that didn't sound like her. I mean, it's tough when your partner kind of emotionally shuts down. You try to connect, you really do, but if the other person isn't open to it. She let her voice trail off, like she was being polite by not saying more. I stood there, frozen with a plastic cup in my hand, listening as she spun this subtle but deliberate narrative. One where she was the emotionally neglected wife, and I, her husband, was some emotionally unavailable ghost haunting the edges of her perfectly reasonable life. It was the kind of story you tell in pieces. Lay the groundwork early so that when things blow up later, everyone already knows who the difficult one was. I watched her smile at my mother, talk about communication being a two-way street, and I realized what she was doing. She wasn't just explaining away the affair. She was preloading the sympathy, making it easier for people to take her side if this ever came to light. She was preparing the stage. At one point, Evan wandered off to grab a drink, and Mia came over to me like nothing was wrong. She kissed my cheek and asked if I'd tried the ribs. I nodded, barely able to keep my expression neutral. "What's wrong?" she asked, tilting her head like I was the one acting off. I wanted to say everything. I wanted to pull out my phone and show her the photo. Ask her what she was doing with him 3 hours before this barbecue. Ask why she needed to lie to my family. Ask when she started rehearsing her lines. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I looked at her and said, "Nothing. Just tired from meetings." She smiled and nodded, placing a hand on my arm like she cared. And for a second, I almost believed she did. But the image from earlier, the dessert, the hand on hers, the way she leaned in like she belonged to someone else now, played over and over in my mind like a movie I didn't want to watch. The rest of the night blurred. I made small talk, helped clean up, thanked my mom for dinner. Mia and Evan left a bit early, citing an early meeting the next day. She kissed me goodbye in front of everyone, like a doting wife, and I let her, because I knew now that something was broken. I just wasn't ready yet to break it open in public. If you ever want to convince yourself that something's fine, the human brain will help you. It'll twist timelines, dismiss inconsistencies, and repack reality in soft, manageable boxes. That's what I'd been doing. For months, probably. I just didn't realize how hard I was working to keep my own illusion alive, until that Tuesday at the bistro shattered it. After that night, the lies stopped sounding vague or harmless. They started sounding rehearsed. I went home alone the next morning, back to the house we'd built together. Mia had told me she'd be staying in the city another night because of project deadlines. I didn't even ask for details. I just nodded, kissed her forehead, and walked away, knowing now that I'd need to start paying attention. Not to what she said, but to what didn't add up. And once I started looking, the threads practically begged to be pulled. First, her new obsession with fitness. It started last spring. She'd never been a gym person, but suddenly it was 5 days a week, every week. At first, I was supportive. She said she was finally prioritizing herself. And that sounded healthy. I didn't question it. But now I remembered the shift in how she dressed after. Tighter leggings, crop tops. Nothing scandalous on its own, but enough to feel like the audience had changed. Like she wasn't dressing for herself anymore. Then came the girls' trips. I used to love those for her. Weekends upstate with her friends, wine, spa treatments. But after the second or third one with no real photos, barely any texts, and weird gaps in communication, I started asking questions. Not out loud. Not yet. But in my head, the doubts piled up. The more I looked, the more I saw it. Her phone was always face down now. Always. And locked. That wasn't new, but the reflexive paranoia was. If I so much as picked it up to pass it to her, she'd swoop in like I'd grabbed a G***N. And then there were the messages she had clearly deleted. I don't mean I snooped. Okay, maybe I did a little, but you can't accidentally erase entire text threads with coworkers. It was the pattern. Long gaps where there should have been conversations. Like she was curating the timeline. One day I noticed something weird with our phone bill. It showed more data than made sense for the single number on her line. When I asked her about it casually over dinner, she shrugged. "Oh, I use my work number a lot more now. Separate eSIM. They made us switch to dual lines for client privacy." That sounded plausible, until I remembered her company didn't allow that kind of device management. I used to help her with tech stuff. I knew their BYOD policy inside and out. The little things kept adding up. A gold bracelet I'd never seen before appeared on the nightstand. When I asked, she said it was from a warehouse sale. Insane markdowns. It looked expensive. Custom clasp. Not her usual style. I started keeping notes. Literally. I opened a locked folder on my phone and began logging details like a detective. Not because I wanted to catch her, but because deep down I already knew. And knowing wasn't enough. I needed to prove it to myself so I couldn't talk myself out of the truth later. Entry from 3 weeks ago. Sunday, 10:37 p.m. Mia comes home from karaoke night with the girls. Smells like a mix of unfamiliar cologne and hotel shampoo. 2 wine glasses in the sink, different lipstick marks. Entry from last Thursday, Wednesday, 7:18 a.m. Catches a 6 a.m. rideshare to an address downtown. Says it's a networking breakfast. Same driver returns 2 hours later. No follow-up meeting appears on her shared calendar. Entry from yesterday, Friday, 11:03 p.m. Her phone buzzes 4 times in a row, but screen doesn't light up. Notifications silenced. I catch the contact name, E. Just that. An initial. When I ask if she's texting someone from work, she says group chat. Then disappears into the bathroom with her phone and doesn't come back for 20 minutes. It was like living with a stranger who looked exactly like the woman I married. There was a night. I remember it too clearly, when I found a cab receipt tucked into a coat pocket. It was from a boutique hotel near the city's art district. When I asked her about it, she said it was a co-working space. They have a great little conference area upstairs. You'd love it. I looked it up. That co-working space had no listings for public rentals. Just suites. And a rooftop bar. Another time, I found a receipt from a wine bar we'd been to once, years ago. Back when we were still engaged. Romantic place. Candlelit booths. She said it was a happy hour for the new hires. But the receipt showed 2 drinks, both high-end, and a dessert we used to share. She hadn't brought any home. I started to notice a kind of choreography to her life. Things were too polished. If she was out late, there was always a reason. Always a preemptive text. Always a trail of alibis. But when I tried to ask natural follow-ups, her story would flatten. It's just work stuff, Tom. Or, nothing to worry about. Don't get in your head. That one stung. Like I was the one creating the problem just by wondering. There was a shift in her mood, too. Her tone. She was lighter. Giddy even on the days after I knew she'd seen him. I could always tell. She'd hum to herself while putting on makeup. She'd cook my favorite pasta for dinner. Almost like she felt guilty. Or victorious. Couldn't tell which. At one point, I made the mistake of bringing up counseling. I phrased it gently. Hey, I've been feeling like we're not really in sync lately. What if we tried talking to someone? Not because something's broken, just to connect better. She smiled, too quickly, and said, "Oh, babe, that's sweet. But we're fine. Really. Everyone goes through slumps. No need to overthink." I dropped it, because how do you tell someone that their rejection of help feels like another confession? And then there was the moment that almost broke me. I was home early one afternoon. Flight got canceled, so I worked remotely from the house. Around 2:30, I was on a call in the kitchen when I noticed her purse on the counter. She never leaves it out. I glanced inside, not planning to snoop. Just habit. Wallet, lip gloss, keys, and a hotel keycard. Branded, subtle, but unmistakable. She hadn't mentioned a hotel that week. In fact, she'd said she was slammed with client Zooms all day. I put it back where I found it. Didn't say a word. That night, I sat across from her at dinner, watching her laugh at some dumb show on TV while she sipped from her wine glass. The same one I'd seen on the drying rack the night before. 2 glasses. 2 lipstick marks. I felt something give way in me. Not rage. Not even heartbreak. Just something deep and cold settling in my chest. A kind of quiet acceptance that the life I thought I was living was no longer real. It hadn't been for a while. But I wasn't going to explode. I was going to listen, observe, collect, because she had taken the truth from me piece by piece. And now I was going to take it back, one detail at a time. It happened on a Thursday, one of those gray, half-hearted days where the sky can't decide if it wants to rain or not. I was supposed to be in Chicago until Saturday, but a storm rerouted my flight the night before, and I landed back home earlier than planned. I didn't tell Mia. I didn't even tell myself why. Part of me just wanted to sleep in my own bed, breathe my own air, feel like something in my life still made sense. But the other part, the part I'd been listening to more lately, knew I needed to see something for myself. I had suspicions. I had notes. I had a file full of little clues. What I didn't have was confirmation. Until that day. I pulled into the driveway around 2:45 p.m. The house looked the same. Our house. White trim. Hanging plants on the porch she always said she'd repot but never did. Her car was there. That was the first red flag. She told me on the phone that morning that she had back-to-back meetings until 7 p.m. "Don't bother calling," she'd said. "I'll be tied up." But there it was, parked perfectly in the drive like she'd never left. I sat in the car for a moment. The engine off, the street quiet, birds chattering like nothing in the world was wrong. Then I stepped out and walked up to the front door. It was unlocked. Another surprise. Inside, the house smelled lived in. Not in the usual way. There was steam in the air, faint but real, like someone had just stepped out of a shower. I could smell her perfume, stronger than usual, layered with something else I didn't recognize. Something woody, masculine. The kitchen was quiet. A mug on the counter. Half-drunk tea still warm. 2 spoons in the sink. And on the island, a half-empty box of truffles. Fancy ones. The kind you'd buy on Valentine's Day or to impress someone. Next to it, a small folded note. I didn't touch it at first. Just stared at the handwriting. Clean, curved lettering. Not Mia's. Eventually, I picked it up. "You make everything better. E." I don't remember how long I stood there. The clock on the microwave blinked 2:52 p.m. when I walked in. By the time I looked again, it was 3:07. I left the kitchen quietly and walked down the hallway toward our bedroom. Each step felt slower than the last. Part of me wanted to stop, to turn around, get back in the car, and pretend I'd never come home. But my feet kept moving, steady as law. The door was half closed, not locked. I pushed it open, and there they were, Mia, Evan, in our bed. Our sheets pulled hastily around them like it mattered. Her hair still damp from the shower. His shirt on the chair in the corner. The fan humming above them like background noise in someone else's story. They didn't see me at first. I didn't make a sound. I stood there for a second or two, or maybe longer, just watching them. Frozen. Like I was staring at a painting I didn't understand. Mia was lying on her side, her hand resting on his chest. Evan was laughing at something she said. Relaxed, comfortable, completely at home in a place that wasn't his. That's when she saw me. Her eyes widened. She *T up like the sheets had turned to fire. "Tom!" Evan sat up, confused, disoriented. "Wait!" I didn't say a word. Not one. I turned around and walked out. I don't remember going down the stairs. I don't remember opening the front door. I just remember standing outside a minute later, staring at the street, my breath shaking. My hands were cold. My vision tunneled. It wasn't just that she had cheated. It was how. It was that she'd brought him here into our space. That she'd lit candles and played music and made the bed for someone else. That she was comfortable enough to shower after. That she'd left the note in plain sight. They didn't expect me back. They didn't expect to be caught. But they weren't afraid of being caught either. Not really. And that's what led me the most. I didn't go back inside that day. I drove around for a while, ended up at a park I used to take walks in when we were first dating. I sat on a bench and tried to process what I'd seen. But nothing made sense. There's no preparation for that kind of betrayal. You think you'll scream, punch something, fall apart. But sometimes the pain is too quiet for that. It just sits in your chest like a weight, refusing to move. By evening, I got a text from her. Mia, Tom, please come home. I can explain. Explain? Explain what exactly? How she managed to lie to my face for months. How she introduced him to my family as if I was the idiot in the room. How she turned our bedroom into a hotel suite. I didn't reply. I stayed at a hotel that night. Not because I couldn't be in the house, but because I didn't want to be within reach. I needed to be unreachable. For her, for him, even for myself. When I finally returned the next morning, she was gone. No note, no apology. Just her side of the bed neatly made. as if that erased what had happened. On her nightstand sat the same bottle of perfume she'd worn the night before. She'd sprayed it on the sheets. I could still smell it. I stripped the bed immediately, washed everything. Sheets, pillowcases, even the mattress cover. It didn't matter. The scent lingered. That afternoon I gathered what I could. Evidence. The truffle box. The note. Evan's shirt. The towel he'd left on the bathroom counter. Still damp. I didn't know what I'd do with them yet, but I couldn't let her rewrite the narrative. I wasn't going to be the confused husband who checked out emotionally. I wasn't going to be the scapegoat in her version of the story. She had shown me the truth. Now it was my turn to show her I'd seen it. There's a strange kind of silence that comes after the storm. Not peace, not calm. Just this hollow, ringing quiet that feels like a warning. That's what the house felt like the day after I caught Mia and Evan. Still. Too still. Like it was trying to pretend nothing had happened, even though the walls themselves felt different. She wasn't home when I got back the next morning. I half expected her to be sitting on the couch, rehearsing some carefully crafted apology. But no, her car was gone. No note. Just a row of empty hangers in the closet and the faint scent of her perfume still trapped in the bedroom air. I didn't hear from her again that day. Not a call. Not a message. It was as if she'd evaporated, leaving me in a version of my life I didn't recognize anymore. I wasn't ready to feel yet, so I started doing something else, investigating. I began in the kitchen. In the drawer beneath the sink, the one she always kept cluttered with receipts and charger cords, I found the first piece of real evidence. A phone. Not hers. Not mine. A cheap Android model, low-end. No case. Just sitting beneath a stack of takeout menus like it had been tossed there in a hurry. When I picked it up, it buzzed in my hand. Locked. But the lock screen was unmistakable. A photo of a golden retriever. Evan's dog. I'd seen him post about it online when I'd looked him up weeks ago. This phone wasn't just hers, it was theirs. And she'd left it behind. I stared at it for a long moment, wondering if it was bait. A test. But no, Mia wasn't that clever anymore. She'd gotten sloppy. Comfortable. She never expected to be caught. The phone had no pin. I swiped up and was immediately pulled into a different version of her life. A world I hadn't been invited to. There were messages, hundreds of them. Not just texts, but voice notes, photos, location pins. Entire conversations logged like a diary. The name on the other end of most threads was Paw Prints. Cute, casual, personal. They talked about everything. Where to meet. What she told me. What lies worked best. She called me cold, distant, even paranoid when I asked about her late nights. He comforted her. Said I didn't deserve her. Said she should stop feeling guilty. Said things would be easier once they moved past the logistics. One thread included photos. Screensh *TS of Airbnb confirmations. Hotel bookings under her name. Notes like, booked for this Friday. You bring the wine. I'll bring the excuse. Some messages were worse than I could have imagined. Not graphic, but int asterisk mate. Laughing about inside jokes I'd never heard. Talking about me like I was a stranger crashing their fantasy. I put the phone down. My hands were shaking, but I kept going. In her office drawer, one she always kept locked, I found her work laptop. She'd left it behind, maybe assuming it was password protected well enough. It wasn't. The screen opened to her inbox. One tab minimized. A reservation for a boutique hotel near the coast. The confirmation came from her corporate email. Attached to it, the line. Finalized with Evan, will loop in others post-retreat. She'd made the booking under the guise of a professional development weekend. Same dates she told me she was at a women's leadership conference. I remembered her packing for that trip. She'd looked radiant, confident. She hugged me at the door like she meant it. God, I backed out of her email and opened her calendar. It was cleaner than I expected, too clean. Most weekends labeled as offline or wellness retreat. Every one of them matched dates from the texts I'd seen with Evan. It wasn't just cheating. It was coordinated. Months of overlapping lies. Emails, calendars, texts, logistics. Every excuse, every alibi precisely timed. But the final blow didn't come from her. Came from Paige. I'd almost forgotten about her. Evan's fiancée. Or maybe ex-fiancée, depending on what she knew. I didn't have to wonder long. She showed up at our door 2 days later. I opened it to find her standing there with a backpack slung over one shoulder, hair pulled into a bun, eyes tired in a way that looked familiar. "Hey," she said quietly. "Hey, I think we should talk." I stepped aside. She came in like someone who already knew the worst was true. We sat in the living room. Same room Mia and I had decorated together 3 years ago. The one where we hosted our anniversary party. Where we took Christmas photos. Now it was just a crime scene. Paige didn't waste time. She pulled out a tablet from her bag and handed it to me. "You should see this," she said. "Before Mia deletes it." "What is it?" "Their shared archive." Evan synced his messages to our iCloud account. He never logged out. I thought he had. I almost didn't look. But then, I don't know. Something just didn't feel right. I scrolled. Text messages. Dozens of them. Voice memos. *TS. Mia sending selfies from hotel balconies. Evan sending photos from my driveway. Photos I hadn't even seen yet. I kept scrolling, my stomach hollowing out word by word. One message from Mia stuck out. "Can't believe how easy it is. He still doesn't know. I think he wants to believe the lie." And another, a few days before I caught them. "I'm scared he's starting to notice. Might need to cool it for a week or two." A lie to me, a strategy to Evan. And then, worst of all, photos of our son Noah. From family events. From birthdays. Texts from Mia saying things like, "He's fine with Evan around now. Doesn't ask questions. Thinks he's just a friend." That one broke me. Because Noah did ask questions. He always asked where mommy was. Why she didn't come home when she said she would. Why she smelled like someone else's house. He didn't say it like that, not exactly. But I heard it. I just didn't want to believe it. Now I had to. I looked up at Paige, who was blinking back tears of her own. "I don't want to hurt you more," she said. "But I thought you deserved to see it. All of it." "Thank you," I whispered. "You have no idea how much this helps." She nodded. Before she left, she handed me a USB drive. "Full backup," she said. "Just in case she tries to spin it." I didn't ask how she knew Mia would try. I already knew. That night, I locked myself in my home office and made copies of everything. Photos, *TS, emails, ride receipts, hotel bookings, all of it. I labeled the folder Truth. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew one thing. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about protecting my son. And making sure the story Mia was crafting never had the chance to replace the one she tried so hard to erase. Noah always knew more than I thought he did. That's what haunted me most in the days that followed. Not the betrayal. Not the lies. Not even the scene in our bedroom that now played on a loop in my head like a nightmare I couldn't shake. What haunted me was the slow realization that while I'd been trying to keep the marriage intact, for Noah's sake, he'd already been quietly adjusting to its collapse. It started with little things. The nights he stopped asking when mom would be home. The way he'd sit closer to me on the couch, subtly but consistently. He used to bounce between us like a tennis ball. Dad for cartoons, mom for bedtime stories. But lately he clung to one side. My side. And I didn't see it. I thought he was just going through a phase. Kids do that, right? I figured he'd swing back toward Mia again once things settled down. Once work calmed down. Once our schedules aligned. I was always telling myself those little lies. Same as the ones she was feeding me. I told myself she was just busy. Distracted. Off. But I was the one who was off the mark, off the truth. Off the path of what was really happening in our home. One evening, a few days after Paige had dropped the truth in my lap, I sat Noah down after dinner. He was working on a drawing, his current obsession. That week it was rockets. The week before it was dinosaurs. His pencil scratched against the paper while I stared at my untouched coffee, trying to figure out how to open the door to a conversation no 8-year-old should ever have to be part of. "Noah," I said carefully. Can I ask you something? He didn't look up. Yeah. Have you ever felt like mom wasn't telling you the truth? He paused, pencil still. Then he shrugged. Sometimes. Sometimes when. He finally looked up. His face was so open, so innocent, it made my chest ache. Like when she says she's at work but she's not. I blinked. How do you know she's not? He went back to drawing. Because I saw her at the mall with that guy. The one with the beard. She said he was helping her with her phone, but they were sitting at the table drinking smoothies and laughing. He put his hand on her leg. My throat went dry. When was this? I asked. He shrugged again. Dunno. Maybe when I had that dentist appointment. You were late picking me up. Remember? I remembered. I'd had a conference call that ran over. Mia said she couldn't go because of a presentation. She told me she was in the city all day. I didn't want to tell you, Noah said after a moment. I thought maybe you'd be mad. Mad at you? I shook my head. No, buddy. Never. You did nothing wrong. He didn't say anything for a long time, just colored in the rocket flames with a red marker. Then he said something that broke me in a way I wasn't prepared for. I like when it's just us. I swallowed hard. Yeah. He nodded. It's quieter, easier. You don't yell. You don't leave. I sat down next to him and put my arm around his shoulder. Hey, you can always talk to me. About anything. Okay? He leaned into me, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt the weight of clarity settle on my chest. My son, our son, had seen it all. Not with the logic of an adult, but with the radar kids are born with. He saw the cold shoulders, the missed dinners, the perfume that wasn't hers, the nights she came home after bedtime and didn't even check on him. He had been adjusting without a guidebook. I realized in that moment that whatever pain I was feeling, he'd been carrying a version of it too, but smaller, quieter, hidden beneath coloring books and half-eaten bowls of cereal. That night I changed the locks. No big production. Just called a locksmith, told them it was a personal security issue. They were discreet, efficient. Mia didn't know yet, at least not until she tried to come back. I let her find out the hard way. She showed up the next day around noon. I was working from home. Noah was at school. I saw her through the window before she knocked. She looked tired. Still beautiful in the way she always had been, but drained. Like the performance had run out of lines. She knocked once, then again. Then texted. The key's not working. Are you home? I didn't respond. She knocked louder. Tom! She called through the door. Come on. Don't do this. I walked to the front, cracked the door just enough for her to see my face. You need to schedule a time if you want to come here. What are you talking about? This isn't your home anymore. She blinked, stunned. I just need to get some of my things. I'll gather what you ask for. You can pick it up next week. I'll be here. Noah won't. You can't do that. I can. And I have. You made choices, Mia. This is one of mine. She took a breath, and I could see her turning on the script again. The eyes, the tilt of her head, the softness in her voice. Can we just talk? Please. Not like this. Not now. I closed the door. Over the next week, I set boundaries. Legal ones, emotional ones, physical ones. I spoke with a lawyer. Showed them everything. The photos, the second phone, the calendar entries, the ride receipts. I told them about Paige. About Noah. About the growing archive that documented not just an affair, but a pattern. A story of manipulation, of dishonesty, of an environment I didn't want my son absorbing. I also reached out to the school counselor. Quietly. I didn't want to make a scene, but I needed Noah to have support. He started going once a week, just to talk. I asked him how it went, but didn't pry. I wanted him to feel safe, in control, heard. He asked me one night if Mia would still come to his soccer games. Maybe, I said. But if she does, it'll be after we talk about what that looks like. You get a say in that too, okay? He nodded. Then he said, I don't want her to come if he's with her. He won't be. How do you know? Because I won't allow it. He smiled. It was small, but it was real. Inside the house, I made small changes. Subtle, but deliberate. I boxed up her things. Carefully, neatly. Labeled every container. Put them in the garage with a list taped to the front. Ready for pickup. Appointment required. I moved my desk into the bedroom. Hung new curtains. Got rid of the throw pillows she loved, but I never understood. I wasn't erasing her. I was reclaiming the space. And Noah felt it too. He started drawing more again. Not just rockets. He drew us. At a picnic. At a park. At home on the couch. Always just the two of us. Sometimes with his grandma. Never with her. One night, he left a drawing on my nightstand. It showed me holding his hand with a giant sun in the background and a house behind us. At the bottom, in crooked letters, he'd written, "Dad is the safe one." I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time that night, staring at that page. It was the clearest truth I'd seen in months. He knew. He always knew. And now it was my job to protect that truth for both of us. Mia filed counterclaims, accusing me of psychological pressure, and curated a victim narrative on social media. She even tried to intercept Noah at school. Security footage showed her grabbing his arm. My lawyer submitted everything. The restaurant photo, hotel receipts, second phone, ride logs, Paige's archive, and Noah's school counselor report affirming his well-being with me. The court saw through it. A storm was building, but I was ready. I was granted full custody. Mia's visits were supervised and contingent on a parenting course. Evan disappeared, his engagement to Paige ended, and he lost access to the project. Months later, Mia sat at that same bistro with Evan, replaying old habits. She didn't see me a few tables behind. I left quietly, without emotion. At home, Noah slept peacefully. No secrets. No late-night lies. Just a life rebuilt around trust, rhythm, and calm.